everyone like in our like house believes that. I mean, excluding me, everyone believes that. Oh, your Mike's voice is so good for podcasts, and they.
Everyone excluding me. All right, guys, welcome to another podcast. Rewind. It took me like 10 takes just to say that first two words, but I do hope the day finds you well. We have a great kind of talk lined up for you today. At least we think so. We're going to recap some movies, some movie news, and basically have an in-depth, detailed discussion on the award-winning film Parasite. So why don't you join us by chiming in below? But how are you guys since our last episode? How long ago was that? That was like a week.
A week ago?
A week ago?
Yeah.
So what'd you guys do? Anything new? Anything cool, exciting you want to share with people?
What did I do?
Okay, we did a lot in regards to our podcast thingy, but most of them right now is a secret. But we would be happy to share with you guys in a few weeks when we have a website running and all our social media channels running. But we have done pretty good jobs with those. I think that we had a progress, so
yeah,
that's a good thing.
Yeah, and Yaz is not just a great architect, but also a great brand logo designer, apparently. So, gracias, thank you.
Our great producer.
I did just a normal or average job on that, but I will take the compliments. I like to take compliments. So.
Yeah, but you don't like to give them. You say people are average.
Yeah.
Off air, she was saying that her roommates mentioned that they find my voice okay. I find it horrendous.
And Mike doesn't know how to take a compliment.
No, but Yaz was like, so yeah, everybody except for me, you have a very normal voice. So
yeah, his voice is normal, isn't it? If you have a different opinion, put a comment for us.
No, I don't want the comment on that. You guys can keep that to yourself. I know what I sound like. Anyways,
please don't make Mike more self-conscious.
What about you, Sarah? Did you do anything cool over the weekend?
Yeah, my friend was in a play. It's called The Mousetrap, and it was really fun. It was in this. They had it.
Is it like The Parent Trap but with mice?
Oh, that would have been cool. It's an Agatha Christie play, so it was a murder mystery, and they had it in this historic home, and it was way out in the countryside. I had to drive like an hour to get there, and I had to park at the bottom of the hill and walk up this hill to this dark house, and there were no lights anywhere, and I felt like she tricked me into going there to get murdered.
Ah.
But you're here, so there
but
was
I'm here,
no
so I
murder?
didn't get murdered.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
They even had cookies and muffins. It's very pleasant.
Nice. All right. Well, I didn't do anything much other than catch up on some editing work. All right. Why don't we get into it? We like to kind of discuss the news. So if you guys don't mind, I'm going to give you some box office results. I always find the numbers fascinating. Parasite has a chance to gross $55 million. If they do that, they would be the highest grossing international film at the domestic box office. So ahead right now are Jet Li's Hero. Do you guys remember that movie? It was a little kung fu, like wire fu movie back in the day. No?
No.
Life is Beautiful is in second place. You guys know that, right?
Yeah, that was one of my favorite movies of all times.
Mm-hmm. And then a movie I don't think I've seen. It's a Mexican film called Instruction Not Included. You guys seen it?
No.
Oh my god.
Is it good? Should I watch it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It has a very nice story.
Okay.
And it has a very nice twist at the end.
Okay. Are you guys surprised at all with how well Parasite's doing? I know we'll get into it later, but just yeah.
I'm not surprised because Parasite is a good movie. So I saw a lot of people are actually commenting on Twitter that it's a dope movie, and I didn't know that dope is like just the real, actual positive adjective that people use for something really good.
Oh.
So a lot of people say
What
that.
did you think it was? Like drugs?
Yeah, I was like, whoa. Yeah. But yeah, people are talking about it and they're motivating their friends to watch it. So I think that for a non-English film, it's doing very great. We watched it actually. By we, I mean like me and my friends. We watched it all the way back in summer sometimes, and there was no but there wasn't that much buzz around it.
No, it came out in October, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not that surprised because I feel like in the recent couple years, I've had more friends and more acquaintances talk about liking to watch Korean stuff, like Korean dramas. So
I have a note about that later on. Okay, well, let's see. In other box office news, Sonic continues with $16 million. So they're doing pretty well. They might be like the highest grossing video game adaptation into film.
Really?
Yeah, Pokemon Detective Pikachu is a great movie. And
it's a good plane movie.
that's currently number one. But The Invisible Man won the weekend with $29 million. And I haven't seen it yet, but the trailer's gotten me hooked. You guys surprised at all with Sonic and a horror flick, The Invisible Man?
I was surprised with Sonic.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Do you guys have any interest in either of the movies? The Invisible Man!
The Invisible Man. I watched the trailer. I watched the trailer in the cinema.
Looks so good.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Did you guys watch the Candyman trailer? That's another horror flick that I'm super stoked to see. I remember. Do you guys remember the original movie? There's an original movie that you can find, right? I don't know the stars, but I remember one part freaking me out. The only part I remember of the movie is you basically have to look into a mirror and say Candyman 5 times, and then he comes, potentially killing you. So,
Oh my God.
Oh.
do you guys want to?
Please, no mirror
I'll
talk.
say the first one.
Sounds like
Because by
Beetlejuice.
accident, I just watched the trailer of this streaming show on Netflix, Lock and the Key, or The Lock and Key. I don't know. It was horrifying for me.
Okay, guys, let me explain if that was a little choppy. I give people a lot of shit when it comes to like working behind the camera for doing shit like making sure you have enough space on your memory card. Well, I didn't do that because I'm a dumbass. So that explains the weird cut here. What were you talking about last? What did I?
You look at the mirror and you
The
say
Candyman.
Candyman.
Oh, yeah.
The Invisible
times.
Man.
Yeah, they're freaked out because they think it's the Candyman that did all this technical glitchy nonsense.
Because you have it open and you said at least Candyman 5 times or 4 times.
Can you get closer to the mic?
Yes.
You brought
Okay.
this on yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Ooh.
know. All right, guys. Candyman trailer. That's right. Some movie rumors that stuck out to me. Like, I'm a huge fanboy, so I don't know if I'm going to mention it. I don't care if you guys don't care. Alison Brie is rumored for She-Hulk. Do you guys know Alison Brie? And do you guys know She-Hulk?
No.
I know Alison Brie, but not She-Hulk.
Okay, we'll move on.
Wait, no. I
I'm
said
just-
that the wrong way.
I'm so
I know She-Hulk, but not Alison Brie.
disappointed right now. What team is this that you guys are not up to all the comic book stuff? All right.
That's what you're here for.
How about this? Do you guys like
grown up here?
Henry Cavill?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Yeah? Would you like him as the new Wolverine? Because that's a rumor.
Really?
Yeah,
I
he's a little big and tall though. Like
Yeah.
Wolverine is only like supposed to be like 5'2", 5'4", somewhere around there. Yeah.
What happened to the old Wolverine?
Hugh Jackman said he kind of retired from the character.
Okay.
So, and then I'm a huge Matrix fan also. So with Matrix 4 filming, there have been some rumors out that Keanu Reeves is actually essentially playing Neo, just a different version of Neo.
Oh.
So I was wondering, what do you guys? Did we ever discuss the Matrix? Were you guys fans?
I like Matrix.
Yes. Yeah. On the pilot episode, you mentioned that they are filming in San Francisco, and
nice.
we are all get so
Yeah.
excited about that.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting because people were wondering, like, well, Keanu Reeves looks older than when the Matrix happened. So how are they going to explain that? And so the theory goes out there that you remember the scene where the architect explains what's going on and that there's been many Neos before him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So they're trying to say that, well, he could look the same, so he's just another Neo.
Oh.
But yeah, interesting. We'll see how that plays out. You guys, what shows or movies have you seen lately, streaming or in the theaters?
I watched the Jojo Rabbit. Or Jojo Rabbit.
I haven't seen that yet, but huge
I
Taika fan. How was it?
It was very nice. It's a very good movie. It has all the elements for a good movie for me.
Oh.
Yes.
Which are what? It's cute, probably.
Yeah, if you want to find out what is a good movie, what defines a good movie for me, please watch our pilot episode, which I specified my criteria for a good movie.
Previously listed.
Yes, it's so smart.
Yeah. But yeah, it met all the criteria of a good movie for me. But it's also very interesting to watch that like American actors or actress, they try to speak English in a German accent. And you can still like see how like Taika's like New Zealand accent like kicks in.
Oh,
When
he's
he-
in it too, right?
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, he played the evil guy.
Yeah. I liked him
Yeah.
because he played the main character in his movie, What We Do in the Shadows, right? Have you guys seen that?
No.
Yes.
Mockumentary on
I love that movie.
so funny.
It's so
you gotta watch
great.
that, yeah.
Okay,
It's really funny. Okay, what about you, Sarah? Are you watching any series or stuff?
I actually just finished watching a series. It's on Netflix. It's called The Untamed. It's a Chinese drama.
Ugh, of course.
It's really
Sorry, the inside joke is Sarah's way more Asian than I am. So, all right, you're watching this Chinese.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly popular in China right now, and it's this historical fantasy, like clan rivalry, magical thing.
So it's like a period piece or a fantasy.
It's not really. It doesn't really stick to a period, but like it just looks historical. So like maybe 1,000 years ago. So it's not like historically accurate or anything. It's still in like ancient China, but it's like fantasy. So they can.
Is there kung fu?
Not kung fu, but there is a lot of fighting and a lot of them like flying around. I think it's really amusing.
I love.
Like flying around with the long flowing robes, and they all have like really
Yeah.
long.
Yeah,
long hair.
love that. And I
It's really
especially love
great.
the sound that they make while they are flying.
It's so great.
Yeah.
I love it. Was 50 episodes, so it was really long.
Oh
but
my goodness! You said you finished a 50-episode series.
yeah, don't ask me how long it took me.
Now I know what you've been up to.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why we don't hear that often from you during the week.
Often from
No, I'm
me.
just joking.
It goes surprisingly quickly.
Yeah, I guess when you're into it, I mean, they structure their series smart, you know. Like I've been through binge watching where lock myself and go through like 20 episodes in 20 hours sort of thing.
I mean, it's not as bad as when I binge watch Stranger Things, but
Yeah, that was terrible for me.
but I would definitely recommend it.
okay. What is it called again?
The Untamed.
The Untamed.
It's really
All
good.
right. Yeah, I've just been watching, rewatching for some reason. I don't know why. The Planets of the Apes remake movies.
Oh, how do you like those?
Oh, I love him. Yeah, Matt Reeves. He's he's awesome. Can I cuss? I just want to cuss today.
Why-
Are we cool with that?
Why can't you?
I don't know. I was trying to keep
just
things
for fun.
PG.
Just chill.
So I don't know why I got into the monkey business with the Planet of the Apes stuff, but remember we were talking about this UK show, Naked Attraction,
Uh-huh.
right? I found the exact opposite show on Netflix and watched the entire series.
The opposite?
It's called Love is Blind. Oh. I get hooked on reality TV show shit.
It's on my list to watch because The Bachelor is going to be ending in like few weeks from now.
Oh, I love it. I love this. The concept is everyone dates, but they don't see each other. So they want to know, is love blind? So basically you choose someone from only the conversations you have with them. And then the second half of this season series is then they meet and they want to see if the physical part gets in the way of the connection that you had.
That's so nice. I have to start watching now. It seems like a deeper show than The Bachelor.
Kinda, in a way. Well, you know what? That's, in all fairness, I couldn't make it through a single episode of The Bachelor. So, just saying.
So when they talk to each other, can they like see each other or?
Not at all. So they basically have pods and they're separated by a wall, but they can hear each other.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I liked it. I'm addicted. Well, I'm addicted to like things like Jersey Shore. So, oh, and then the two movies I did see were and can highly recommend is Guns Akimbo. Have you guys heard of that? It stars Samara Weaving, and Daniel Radcliffe. It's this like punk rock, maybe semi-futuristic action movie. So basically he gets into trouble and people bolt two guns to his hands and tell him he has to kill one person and he has to figure out how to get out of this whole mess. But it's an action / dark comedy. Love it. And then Standing Up Falling Down, have you guys heard of this? No, I can recommend it too. It's awesome. Okay. Billy Crystal is
I love Billy Crystal.
Stars in it. So basically this stand-up comedian is failing in life, disappointed in himself, and I can't remember why, but he went back home and basically meets and becomes friends with Billy Crystal. I don't want to go past that, but it's like sweet and funny and possibly heartbreaking.
Oh.
So what was the name again? Standing Up again?
Standing Up, Falling Down. The main character, he's a stand-up comedian. So
nice.
Again, if you guys have time to, I would check those two flicks out. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I had time to rewatch Parasite, which sort of brings us... Yeah, you see what I did?
Oh, good job.
Yes.
I worked on this.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's why we're here today, and I figure, do you guys want to give like an introduction? Parasite.
I just
for those that don't know.
Yeah, I just want to give like a general introduction of the movie. So as you know, guys, it's one of the best movie of last year, and it was highly acclaimed not only by the critics but also by the audience who watched it in the theater. So on Rotten Tomatoes, it has the 99% scores. It's actually from the critics, but the audience score is like also 90%, which is a high score. On IMDb, it has 8.6, I guess. And as you know, it's a South Korean movie. The genre of that movie, I have read so many things, but it's safe to say it's a dark comedy or black comedy. But some people says it's a drama, it's a thriller, or also like a mystery.
At this point, it's kind of like a Bong Joon-ho genre. Like he's so good, it's like very him. But anyways.
Yeah, that's a good description from you also. Yeah, so it's directed by this genius director Bong Joon-ho. And he also co-written, and he also collaborated in writing the script. So not only he directs, he also has the credits in writing it, and it has a fantastic storyline for me. We will talk about it later, but also on the side of in regarding to the awards it has won so far. It received the prestigious award in the Cannes Festival, the Palme d'Or, or I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the French word right or wrong, Palme d'Or award. And
She practiced that before. Then.
yeah, I was practicing
For a long time.
Palme d'Or. So, and I've read somewhere that since 2013, it was the first movie that won this award from with like a unanimous vote from the jury. So the last time the movie vote the same with the same vote, the movie vote the same award with the unanimous vote was Blue is the Warmest Color at 2013. And also, as you guys know, we discussed it on our previous podcast that Parasite also won four Oscars in major categories like directing, best picture, best screenplay, and also the newly introduced category, the best international feature film. And speaking about that, our president Donald Trump kind of talks really heavily about the movie, and he was like, "Oh, where's the old good time when all the good American movies was eligible to win the best picture? Now we have these foreigner movies coming and getting all the awards." So he was like slamming on.
What else did he also say?
Oh my God, he made kind of like racist comments, and he says that he wish movies like Gone with the Wind.
Yeah. But remember, he also said like, "And what is that movie even about? Like, who knows?" And then the response from the
Yes.
Parasite crew was,
Yeah, he cannot read. Donald Trump cannot read. So
"Of course, he
probably,
doesn't know what the movie's about, right?
Yes.
Like he can't read, so he didn't read the subtitles."
But
So
yeah,
great.
but the interesting thing is that I went through some of like Trump's old tweets. He used to watch Oscars all the time, and he was live tweeting about it in like back in 2013 and 2014. And I found some interesting details that in 2014 he said that, "Oh, I should be the next host for the Oscars because they are doing a terrible job on hosting the events." And guess what? He even ended up with hosting like a totally new show, which is like running the greatest country of this great country, which is US. But aside from the jokes, Donald Trump's, I think that Trump hasn't watched the Parasite. He just like made the comments because he doesn't like the idea of like,
of course
yeah,
he did.
fun.
He's busy doing his his work.
Yeah, but he just like make these comments during the campaign rally in Vegas, I think. And yeah, he doesn't like the movie, which is no surprise. And I think he doesn't like the idea of a foreign language movie or a foreign movie just won.
That's okay.
Yeah. So
It was an awesome win though for Parasite, and hopefully you guys had a chance to see it. We're gonna talk in depth, so forewarning, there might be some spoilers in here. Actually, there will be spoilers in here, so if you haven't seen it, go watch the movie. It's really good.
Yeah, so I will give you like a brief summary of the movie. It's not the whole summary, but it's just like a brief summary. So this movie is about a poor family, we call them the Kims, that they try to con their way into becoming the servants of a rich family, the Parks. And in the beginning of the movie, we see Kims, they are living in a very tiny apartment, or basement apartment in one of the poorest neighborhoods of Seoul in South Korea. And they are struggling to make the ends meet. And they have like low paying jobs, like, become like folding pizza boxes. And basically they are a struggling family. And the son of the family, Ki-woo, happens to have a good English ability. So one of his friends referred him to be a tutor, an English tutor for Park's family's daughter.
Is this a brief synopsis?
Oh no, I will wrap it up. Yeah. So that's the beginning of the story, that he starts his job as a tutor and he tries to like refer other families member into Park's family. So this is the start of the story when the Kim family begins to infiltrate the home of the Parks by recommending each other's service, and they pretend that they don't know each other. They just have heard about like how good or how professional the other person is, so they successfully can ditch all the previous servants out of the house, out of the home, and they replace the previous staff. But their like easy life goes like into some dark dramas, while like their like whole story threatened by like being exposed. So that's my like
it is kind of a hard movie to like give a like a brief like summary of, because it's complicated. It's a Bong Joon-ho style film, and in that regard it's kind of hard to pinpoint. It's not just someone needs to save a girl sort of thing.
And I think the less you know going into it, the better it might be.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But you've seen it. That's why you're sticking around for this podcast.
Yeah. So I'm done with giving my summary. So I just want to ask about your general impression. General impression of the movie.
Yeah, maybe if I could, just because I feel like, oh, here's something I should maybe speak about, being part Korean. Are you guys familiar with like Korean cinema at all?
I have watched some good Korean films in the past.
Yeah, like my first exposure to really any like foreign films were like Jackie Chan's old movies and stuff like that. And then from the Chinese kung fu stuff, I jumped into a friend introduced me to the film Ichi the Killer from Takashi Miike. Do you guys know that director? He's done like he did the movie The Thriller Audition, Dead or Alive. He's a famous Japanese director. Like they kind of had a period too with Japanese cinema, and they were known for like extreme, highly stylized, violent like pictures. And so and from my understanding, all I was exposed to while this was happening with Korean cinema was like you were saying, Korean dramas. So it was like the same cliched love triangle, or they were like period pieces. So that's all that I knew about Korean cinema at the time. And then this movie called H came out, and this was cool. This was violent. This was unexpected in a way. I was like, okay, this is something different from Korean movies. And then, I mean, I'm a fanboy now of Bong Joon-ho. But then I think in 2003, he came out with the movie Memories of Murder.
Oh yes, and that's a good movie.
Yeah, and it starred Park So or something like
Park
that.
Song?
Yeah, who's also in Parasite. But yeah, and that's where the journey began. I mean, there were other movies that I think came up, but I remember that what Korean cinema for me brought was the highly stylized, a lot of times violent nature of Japanese cinema, but it also made it more polished and had weirder and tighter, like low plot hole type movies. And I'm interested to see where it goes from there. But being part Korean, wanted to just talk about some old Korean movies. So if you haven't seen them yet, I'll tell you the ones that influenced me. So all of Bong Joon-ho's films, but specifically The Host. Yes, the Willy Wonka sequel, Snowpiercer.
We talked about that also on our podcast about that.
Mother is another great film.
No, I haven't watched that.
And now Parasite. So that brings us to that. And what did you guys think about this movie? Like, what's your quick like snap of your impressions?
I really enjoyed the movie. because it was just I didn't see any of the twists and turns coming, and I laughed. I gasped a lot. There were a lot of parts that made me sad.
I don't have coronavirus. Sorry. All right. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, because there were funny parts. There was, it was a lot of suspense and thriller type, and I don't know, it was just.
Did you
good.
know anything about the movie before going in?
I did know that. I knew the general summary that a poor family was conning their way into a rich family's servants.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it hit a certain point in the movie when the rich family went on the camping trip, and the Parks went on the camping trip, and the Kims were having the party in the house, and when the old housekeeper came back from there, I was like, yeah. This movie's just exploding.
Yeah, it's just like that there were different sections in this movie. I mean, you can literally divide the timeline of the movie into separate parts and say, okay, in this part you have good laugh, in this part you had the whole sense of suspense and maybe some extent horror or more suspenseful moments, and then it's more violence and violent movies, and then you have more a drama. So you have
all the scenes in the bunker and beneath the house seems like a horror movie to me.
Yeah,
just the way it looked.
So did you know anything about the film before you went in and saw it? Yes.
I haven't read a single thing about it. It was just that my Chinese friends, which happened to be a huge fan of Korean dramas and Korean cinema, they told us about they watched this movie on their laptop, and they want to now experience it on a bigger screen. So they suggested us to go and watch it together, and we had zero idea about it. As I said, around the time that we watched it, there was not that much buzz around it, except that we know it already won the Cannes Film Festival award, but we had no idea about it. And I went to the movie with this whole feeling that I can predict it. It's just a comedy. They get into their and all I had in my mind probably we will see a love story between the Ki-woo and the family's daughter.
Oh, no.
And this is what
No.
we should see. And I had zero idea. And I don't know, Mike, if you remember or not, but when you asked me about my general impression of this movie, I told you that, this movie was so unexpected that I could at the same time feel different emotions while I was at the cinema. I was fearful, I laughed, as you said, I was happy, I was sad.
So many emotions.
And I never experienced something like that before. I usually like emotional movies, but not something that, triggers all the emotions at the same time. I never had such an experience, and I had a blast watching it. And I would really love to watch it again. So I'm waiting for my roommates coming back from California, and we can go and watch it on the biggest screen in the theaters again.
Coronavirus.
Ooh.
Cool. All right. Well, I didn't know anything about it either, and I think you guys are right. It's kind of cool if you can go in knowing as little as possible. That might have added to my general impression, but I don't think it would have affected actually, because I found the movie brilliant. So why don't we go into it, and maybe we'll go at it chronologically a little bit, if you guys don't mind.
Okay.
Sure.
So Yas said, there are basically two sets of families going on. And the Kim family is the poor family. Kang Ho Sung plays the father, and he's in a bunch of Joon-ho movies as well. But I thought the opening scene to show them was absolutely brilliant, showing them subterranean, below ground, that introduction and going, just seeing their overall living conditions.
And searching for Wi-Fi and then finding it near the toilet.
Yes.
So they basically do a great job of setting up like the condition of the family, which is very poor and struggling. They also do that with the pizza box job, like you mentioned earlier. So,
and the guy urinating in front of their house.
Oh yeah, and the stink bugs, and then and they were like, just leave it open, right? When there was a fumigator going on, trying to like,
and then they start like choking on the
Oh my
gas.
god.
Yeah. So Bong did a great job of just showing, just really driving home that point. Yet I found that their tight-knit, humorous approach creates empathy for these less than characters.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What was your feeling when you first were introduced to the family? Did you like them? Did you not like them?
Okay, yeah. I think that the first impression I have from the family that, again, we will see a poor family and we should feel like empathy about them. So that was my first impression. But as we watch it and if we follow the journey of them, you feel like that, your views keep changing. They are not the poor, innocent portrayal of common poor families that you will see in a lot of movies.
I think that's the beauty of this movie is everyone is gray. Like in real life, everyone is gray. There's no, 100% saint or devil. But that's cool. What was your first?
I think my view is the same as Yassi's. The introduction to them was like kind of humorous and they seemed like a tight-knit family. I'm like, I like them. And then they start doing all these other things and saying things. And I'm like, maybe these characters aren't as likable. But that's what I liked. I liked that they are multi-dimensional and that the portrayal of a low-income family is just that, look at these poor, pitiful souls who are just so kind but are living this rough life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so after the introduction, I felt like what's his name again? Blah 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 blah.
Ki-woo?
Ki-woo sort of like from then on like becomes sort of the main character for a little while.
Yeah.
After all the character building with the family, and it sort of becomes clear that his conflict and desires are pretty easy to discern. Right? It's essentially he's poor and he wants a better life for him and his family.
Yeah. So he wants to earn more money.
Right.
Yeah, and it's funny because at the beginning of the movie, I was like, I wish they could succeed. I wish they could like get into the family.
Right.
I had no idea that they had like just some like cruel means to achieve their goals. And
and by the way, my bad. I should have said. So the family, there's 4 people in the family. The father, the wife, a son, and a daughter. So the Kim family is 4 people.
Yes. So in the beginning, I was just like hoping for them and rooting for them that, I wish that they could succeed. They could get better job with the rich family. And I was hoping to like see them like deserve the opportunity that they have been given.
Yeah.
And I'm not in no way saying that they don't deserve to get like a good pay job, but they have just some cruel means, and I don't know if you want to get into that.
So what happens next? Now we get introduced to Ki-woo the son, and then we meet his friend who gives him the rock. And so I want to ask you guys about that because so this whole journey kind of starts in a way with that gift, right? So Ki-woo's close, or I don't know if he's a close friend, but friend gives him this thing called a scholar's rock or a susyok. I don't know if I said that right, Korean people. But what do you guys think it means? Because we do see it in multiple parts of this film.
I thought it was kind of funny when they introduced the rock, and the Kim family was like, "Oh wow, look at this! This is like a metaphor. This is a symbol. Like this will bring us good luck." And then the mom was like, "But it's not food."
Bong Joon-ho made a comment or in an interview. He said, "Because I made the character say it's a metaphor, is it indeed a metaphor?"
Yeah.
You know, so that was an interesting thing. Oh yeah, side note, this bastard Bong Joon-ho also designed the house. They designed it from scratch.
Oh yeah, I read that.
Like, anyways, my bad.
And apparently the architect said this is preposterous. No one builds a house like this.
Yeah. I thought it was sort of like, I don't know, like the best I can come up with is like a heavy burden.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
Especially like towards the end when after the flood and Kiwi was just like carrying it around.
Yes.
It just felt like a burden or like a curse.
And one thing that I put on my notes is that in the beginning, it seems that the only person who believes in the special power of the stone is the Kiwoo, not the other members of the family. Like the mom was kind of like, as you said, that, oh, it's not food. It has not, like, it hasn't, let's say, blessed with the powers to bring power or prospect to our family. But throughout the film, we see that, like, kind of Kiwoo, which had belief in the stone and its power, somehow his destiny somehow his destiny get tied to the stones more than the others, more than the other characters.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he was injured with it.
yes, he was the one who carrying it
Yeah.
and then it was a means for him to be injured. But we will walk you through that process.
Well, it was a gift to him, right? And immediately upon receiving that gift, he gets offered this to take over his friend's position as a tutor for the other major family, the Park family.
Yeah.
So I like that. I don't know. I just like the scene where they were in the internet cafe and his sister was helping him like make that fake diploma, you know, to sort of like, because he has to apply for this job. It wasn't just like he was able to get it. You know, you still had to interview.
Have qualifications.
Exactly.
Which he does.
Exactly. But I just loved seeing like the internet cafe. It was a very like Korean thing or Asian. I don't know if it's an Asian thing, but it's definitely a Korean thing. They have cafes with rows of computers where people can just
in
go.
In Iran, we have the same concept.
Oh, you do?
Or at least those type of cafes used to be so much popular back in like, I don't know, 20 years ago. Or not, sorry, I'm not that old. Maybe 10 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago. Yeah. So that those type of spots were also popular for students to hang out when there was no schooling sessions.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know how that struck you with the whole like fraud thing. You know, obviously things escalate in the movie, but you know, to me, it was just a reminder that you know, survival, it's a motherfucker, right? You start to your moral compass ends up.
Well, and even like Kiwoo was like, this is not a forgery or fraud. Like, I'm really gonna go to university and get my actual degree.
Yeah.
So it's
and
just
in the
like
beginning,
in
he didn't
advance.
even want to, you know, do it. And his friend was like, I mean, he was giving his friend reasons why he shouldn't be a tutor, you know, and his friend had to convince him because he had a crush on the daughter that he was tutoring. And he was afraid that if any other university student took his position, they would be interested in her too, you know.
Which backfired.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And also it shows another thing. So we know that education around the world, especially higher education, is getting more and more expensive because now it's more a form of like an industry, and it's a form of like making profit for like higher education institutions to like charge high tuition. So I'm not sure how it works in like South Korea, but like in a lot of countries, including obviously US, going to like university and college is more like is more tied back to your financial status rather than your intelligence and, you know, your willingness to study. So a lot of people just choose not to go because even if they are interested, they just choose not to go to the college because of the high the high tuition, or
Yeah.
they have to find a job, or they have to find like a
I mean, that
another.
just contributes to structural inequality because, like, the tutoring positions, like, oh, we want you to have a qualification, so you can't even get certain opportunities if you don't have the education, but then you can't get to
Yeah. So for
university if you don't have the money.
So for Kiwoo, it was more of like an obligation not to go to the university. I mean, sorry, it wasn't something that he hasn't. He has chosen deliberately. Like, he wants to actually go to universities, as you said, and
Yeah, but his whole family had to like box up pizza boxes, and they fucked up at that job too, you know? So, I mean, it's not even seemingly in the realm of a possibility for him.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and I read in an interview with Bong Joon-ho that the reason he chose to make Kiwoo a tutor for the Park family was because it's one of like the only believable situations for a family at the extreme end of extreme low income status and high income status to actually meet.
Yeah,
because otherwise they're totally separated.
Yeah, just like here, South Korea, there is a pretty stark sort of income inequality over there. Very poor places, very rich places. So what happens next? He goes to meet the parents, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys, someone want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I haven't watched that like recently. So you have the fresh memory, but
He goes to the Park's family house, and the Park's like the Kims are a 4-member family with the mom and dad, older daughter and son.
And what's the first like difference you've known between the two families? Like, so he's walking up the steps and you see the house, right, versus the subterranean basement, right?
Yeah, because to get into the Kim's family home, you have to go down into the basement, but for the Parks, you're constantly walking up.
Exactly.
yeah, even their
Yeah.
house situated on like a hilly landscape. So
Yeah, no, Bong Joon-ho is, a genius, and he's very consistent in what he's doing. So Kiwoo, when you see him meet the family for the first time, is walking uphill, and that plays a big role in this movie. And he's walks even further up because he has to walk upstairs,
Yeah,
in
to
order
get to
meet.
the actual house, you have to walk up the stairs from the entrance.
And then we're introduced to the mom of the Park family, and
Who's introduced as kind of like a
naive. Can we say?
ditz, I guess.
well, I just thought she was introduced weirdly, period, because she was passed out on the garden table outside, and the housekeeper had to like wake her up,
Yeah.
because he was here for the interview. So I was like my first impression was like, was she drunk?
Yeah, that's what I thought, too.
Like drugged out.
But I think that was another symbolic representation of that, how she was like clueless about these series of like events that is going to happen to her.
I don't know about that. I just think, well, because Bong Joon-ho explains it later in the movie.
What was the explanation?
She was drugged out.
Oh, she was drugged
She
out.
wanted drugs.
Oh.
Later on
Oh,
in the
you're
movie.
right. She asked for drugs later.
Yeah, so that contributes. Maybe the drugs contribute to the naiveness. That is
Ah.
true. But yeah, everything Bong Joon-ho does is set up fucking brilliantly. Like, his plot holes are airtight. Like, you're not introduced to some random object that hadn't had a place in a scene like earlier. But yeah, so we meet. What was your first impression of when the mom and the tutor met, like that exchange or interaction?
I was nervous that he get exposed, but yeah, as I said, I have the whole feeling of that. Oh, how nice, like, or how nice and naive she is, and he tries to be as Kiwoo tries to play it as cool as he can.
he was more than playing it cool. He kind of has like a special gift. He was a like great bullshit artist. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
He was like a natural at that.
Yeah.
So, and she was overbearing, right? She wanted to sit in as the first lesson, right? As like the as the trial or like
Yeah.
the interview for the thing was to actually tutor the daughter, you know? So I mean, I thought that was interesting that like, you know, he was able to sell her on the idea that he was teaching her how to handle pressure and stuff. And,
Yeah.
you know, he
Yes.
was like, control your heartbeat or whatever,
Oh yes.
you know?
Yeah, that was intense, but that was also a little bit like risky in front of like a mom
Sure,
watching
she
the
was
daughter.
nervous at first, right? She
Yeah.
like perked up and was like, "What's going on?"
Why are
But
you
Yes.
touching her?
yeah, but she
Yes.
ended up like selling it. So they cut to like her pulling out cash to pay him for the first day's lesson, right? And I thought it was funny that she was counting cash and then took some away. Like
Oh, yeah.
out of the envelope, and I just thought that was like so Korean because it's like they're so generous and want to give up stuff, but you immediately kind of like hate them for you know, and like this regretful buyer's remorse type thing.
Oh.
Okay, so let's see, and I just wanted to mention again, I'm such a huge fan of Bong. He creates action and frame. It's so interesting. There's always like interesting things going on, and when they were going up the steps for the first lesson of tutorage with the daughter,
Yeah.
like this dog, the little mini dog, I don't know if it's like a Pomeranian or something,
Yeah.
Yeah.
walks by, and then the housekeeper is chasing, you know. It's just, it's beautiful. Everything in it is beautiful.
It is.
The shadows on the concrete
Yeah.
wall. Oh
And-
my god.
Yeah, and doesn't the when the mother's paying Kiwoo, the son like shoots some arrows towards them.
Yeah.
Some like play arrows.
Yeah, suction cup arrows, because
Yeah.
he's big. The son is like a big fan of Native American things. He's like going through a Native American Indian phase. So, Mr. Why did I write this? Oh, yeah. So what's also revealed is Mrs. Park's kind of delusional love for for her little son, who's how old do you think he is at the time?
Like
8
8?
or 9.
8. So she thinks that he has this like tremendous genius gift for painting.
Yeah.
And I like the way he does humor in there. Do you guys remember when so Kiwoo, the poor son who got the tutoring job, they're staring at this 8-year-old kid's painting, and you know they're saying, "Oh, how brilliant it is," and the son is like, "Oh yeah, this is a great portrait of a chimp." Right, and then the mom was like, "It's a self-portrait." You know?
Yes, it was
So I mean, you
hilarious.
clearly see like he's bullshitting, and she's allowing herself to be bullshitted.
Yeah.
You know, this delusional. My mom was delusional. She thought I was special. You know, so it is kind of a Korean thing. I don't know if it's just like a cultural thing overall, but that was definitely my personal experience.
Same.
Yeah, maybe it's just your mom's. Your mom's love you.
Or
Yes.
maybe because Mrs. Park was high, she was able actually to see more.
The genius of it, the
Yeah.
real genius of it.
Yes.
That's very good.
That's a good point.
I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. So Kiwoo, he loves his family, right? And he's
Yes.
quick to
Yeah.
pivot and go from that bullshit to getting his sister Ki-jung involved. So she mentions that like he needs a new art tutor or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Art
So
teacher.
art teacher. So he recommends this person that he knows. I don't know the exact details of his lie, but that's his foot in the door of like, hey, I'm gonna recommend someone to you and give
Yeah.
my sister a job here because she needs it too. Right. So there's a real like kinship tribe situation going on here, you know, where as like especially in my experience, Koreans go out of their way to really just rely on the recommendations of others. That's how in my experience I've gotten like horrible attorneys and painters is through Korean recommendations. So if you get a recommendation from a Korean, stay away.
Don't trust it.
Don't trust it. So neurotic oddball Mrs. Park is set up nicely with the impatience and spying on the kid during his sister's first trial lesson. So she really, the
And
sister...
She really like takes control. She's like, no, you can't. To the mom, you can't sit in.
Yeah,
Like-
so if you think Kiwoo was a good bullshit artist, like...
She's even better.
Yeah, because she could, out of blue, just mentions that, oh, your son needs like art therapy. And
she had something
and it's going
traumatic
to be
happen,
a higher
right?
rate. Yeah. And this was a good foreshadowing, or not foreshadowing, but a setup. You know, she says, so the sister who's applying for this art therapy position is like, yeah, something happened in like first grade, and the mom and Mrs. Park gasped and was like, yes, something traumatic did happen in the first grade. You know what I mean? And then she was like pointing to a zone in the photos, like two messy zones, and was like, see that? That's what we like. It's like a
black corner.
Right. It's an indication of schizophrenia, you know, just getting her super worried and like, so you need art therapy, but you know, it's more responsibility. So it's going to cost you.
Yes.
And then later in Ki-jung was like, oh, I just looked up some stuff and bullshitted it. And I don't know.
Yeah,
what
just
I was
Googled
talking
it
about.
like 15 seconds before or something like that, right?
Yeah, it was genius like that.
It was genius.
Oh, they are so naive. I just Googled it on internet like 5 minutes ago, and I told them that they need art therapy, and they just buy it. Yeah, so they were poor, naive people.
Definitely naive. But it is amazing. I wrote a note to myself on this. It was amazing. Like, part of the reason she can pull it off is she sets the tone immediately. And for some reason, just this like human interactions with people, if you set the tone early, you can get away with murder afterwards.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, well, I don't want to give a personal example. No, just to, you know, if you're like a goofball forward, you know, make fun of people sort of way, then you can get away with a lot. Like the first time,
that's what people expect.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so you could just be. I was notorious for just saying some bullshit to customers when they came into the cafe, especially if they were like the first time that they ever went in there. So, I mean, I would do dumb things, but like there was this Indian chick that just started working in the building, and some other people mentioned her that she was starting soon. So when she came in and I saw it was an Indian chick, I just assumed. You know, and like I think the first thing I asked her was like, "Hey, you're Indian, right? So why don't you smell?" Right? And it was just a stupid thing, you know, that made her laugh and like question like, "Who the hell is this guy?" or whatever, right? But now that I have that reputation, I could say things like nice hair, you did something differently. Would you do wash it? You know, and it's just, you know, it's an acceptance. But if you're super nice to someone and then you like crack a remark like that,
they're so shocked.
Yeah, you know, and possibly offended. So with Ki-jung coming in right away, and it's like, no, I don't. You can't sit in my lesson, right? Close the door behind you. You know. Leave silence, you know, and then seeing the son actually with results as she's leaving the tutor. This kid is wild and crazy, but when she comes in to see his son after her first lesson with him, he like gets up and bows to the tutor and then walks away all calm. You know what I mean?
Shocked.
Yeah, so it's just a thing with us that like we respond really well if someone comes. You ever heard of the experiment? Where it's just you guys can look that up, the experiment. There's a lot of tests done on this whole like subject and topic, but it's just funny what you can get away with, especially with like just the way you say it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for that tangent, guys. My bad for going off topic. So great escalation from there, right? Because Ki-woo recommended Ki-jung.
Yes.
And now what happens with Ki-jung?
And then Ki-jung sets up, the family has a chauffeur, and she sets it up so the family will fire the chauffeur and hire her dad instead.
How does she do that?
She leaves her underwear in the car.
Yeah, so basically after the first lesson, they tell her, "Hey, we have a driver. Why don't you have him take you home? He'll take you home." And so it's this young like hip driver or whatever, and so. Well, yeah, what Sarah said is, you know, it goes in her head, this idea. And so she takes her panties off and slips it underneath the seat in hopes that Mr. Park, who uses the driver, would find it and assume that it was something to do with the driver, right?
Yeah.
So, and it works. Because what happens...
It worked really well.
Yeah, because what happens shortly after is... Mr. Kim finds it and takes it home to show his wife, right?
Yeah.
And I thought it just little touches is so funny. First of all, those gloves, those are like standard Korean kimchi gloves that she puts on before she touches the panties, right? And I love that she uses it and puts it on the gloves to like move the panties aside.
And she's
then,
like gripping it with like 2 fingers.
Right. No, but then did you notice that when she like gasps, she uses that same hand with the glove to like cover her mouth, you know? So I just thought like just little touches, little details like that are hilarious.
Yeah. And before this point, Ki-woo and Ki-jung, there wasn't an English tutor or art therapy person already, but that starting with the chauffeur, they had to kick someone out to get another member of their family in.
Exactly. So another form of escalation, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the infiltration is now in full power.
Almost. We've got halfway there, right? So we've got
Halfway.
2. But
No. I have a remark to say. So one of the funniest, I think, dialogue from Mrs. Park was when she saw the panty, she was shocked that, oh, it's a cheap panty. It's not a good material. I don't know
Yeah.
if you remember
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So it
Yeah.
has another also.
definitely 100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a good catch. I thought it was just funny too that they like assumed, like they asked the question themselves, like you know, they thought it was bad because the driver was having sex in the backseat of their car. Like, why can't they just like go to a hotel? Why disrespect them like
Or at
this?
least do it in the front seat.
Yeah, where he already sits. Why in the back seat, right? But then he asked the real question is, who would forget their, like, I can understand losing an earring or something like that. Who would forget their panties?
Yeah.
You know, so they asked that question and they just assumed they're fucking drug addicts.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Instead of really questioning, like, to me, it'd be like, who planted this there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But anyways, that's beside the point. Anything else interesting before we move on to how the father gets a position? So the driver gets fired consequently.
Yeah.
Right. And so the position opens up and Ki Jung basically says, you don't want another hip driver, right? You want someone old
Yeah,
and
someone
steady.
old and
Yes.
experienced and
Yeah.
And so the,
Trustworthy.
and so Mr. Kim is
Yeah.
yeah, Mr. Kim gets
right.
the job as the driver.
Yeah, and Koreans and their fucking tests. So they, maybe it's just the Koreans I know. Maybe I just know messed up Koreans, right? But like Koreans love to like run little tests, and you never know it's a test, right? So I thought that was funny that Mr. Park is like saying this is not a test as he picks up his coffee mug to stare at it to see if Mr. Kim is a good driver or not.
Yeah.
Right. So test with the test, and once again. Bong Joon-ho, it's just everything's interesting. There's like a window scene with people like arguing through the little frame of the window. It's just like there's always interesting stuff going on everywhere in his shots.
Yeah.
All right. And yet during all this deception still, to me at least, and you guys please tell me how you guys are feeling about the family, but this little interaction where the father's like saying eat because they're all gathering at this like cafeteria or something like that and they're having an outdoor meal finally together as a family,
Yeah.
you know, enjoying the fact that their son and their daughter have jobs now and he's about to be a driver.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, like that, and then the butt grab that Mr. Kim did to Mrs. Kim, you know, it just reminded me that this family is tight and close and they all
Yeah,
love
they're
each
very
other.
close.
Yes.
And so even though they're lying and they're taking their deception up a notch because they got someone fired now,
Yeah.
those little things still, you know, it still creates some empathy towards
Yeah,
each
they're
Yes,
still
exactly.
sympathetic.
And it is exactly the same as she said. Like with the first 2 jobs, they didn't replace someone. And even with replacing the chauffeur, because he was a young guy, you would think that, oh, that young person probably can find a better job or can find another job probably somewhere.
Yeah, right.
So
Again,
it's-
he's convincing himself that it's okay.
Yeah, so it's not that horrible what they did so far. But
Yeah.
as we will see, their methods got like worsened. So do you want to continue with the story?
I think they still seem kind of lovable at this point.
Yeah, they're still. That's my whole point because the things that they have done so far at this point, it's not too bad because you feel like, oh, it's something forgivable.
And they're happy because they're like, well, we actually have money now.
They have money. They can have a nice meal and
Yeah.
Right. That whole sun setup.
yes.
their poor family. He just wants better for his family. It's starting to turn around. It's starting to happen.
Yes.
And the side note. I don't know if you noticed that they transition to English sometimes, and I was just it just takes me back too, because like they like to emphasize certain words and then they'll like switch to English to use it, like this like Korean hybrid English. It's just ridiculous. I don't know. It just brought back too many memories, maybe possibly being yelled at by my.
Oh dear.
But yeah, it's a very common thing, and I also wrote. Koreans are very enamored with like Americans and Caucasian people. It's definitely a status sort of thing. So knowing a little bit English is pretty good.
Oh yeah, and Mrs. Park was always referred to Kiwoo as Kevin.
Oh, I didn't notice that. Did he?
Yeah, she's Kevin for Kiwoo and Jessica for Ki Jung.
Yes, Jessica.
Yeah,
that's
emphasizing
right.
like the English.
Yeah. Very good. And so we've got 3 now.
One more.
And I like, once again, the constant escalation. This one's going to be even tougher because this housekeeper has been around.
I felt bad for the housekeeper.
So how'd they do that? How'd they set it up? What do you guys want to talk about regarding that?
So I just want to like give like a brief history about the housekeeper so the housekeeper was working in that house even before Parks moved in. So she used to work for the former homeowner,
who was also
the builder
built the
and
house.
architect of the house. So she was kind of a loyal member of not only the family but the mansion itself, like the architecture and the house itself. So she getting rid of her, it's kind of brutal because So do you want to tell that she did?
So they get rid of her through this rather elaborate plan, because they find out the housekeeper is allergic to peaches, specifically like the fuzz on peaches. It makes her like break into a rash and like coughing, and it's terrible for her. And so they plant the story that the housekeeper has TB, which I think is a funny illness to choose, because even Mrs. Park was like, does anyone have TB anymore? And so they get the peach fuzz and they're able to like throw it on her, and she goes to the hospital, and then they find that they find the housekeeper. What is the housekeeper's name?
It's I call her Mrs. Moon. It's Moon something, but I knew a Mrs. Moon, so in my notes I called her Mrs. Moon. Okay,
yeah. So she was coughing, and Mr. Kim and Mrs. Park come in to like her coughing and having a reaction, and Mr. Kim like pours some ketchup on
and once again, what's beautiful about Bong is he set that shot up earlier with pouring hot sauce on a slice of pizza before they ate. So once again, the packet is not introduced randomly. The hot sauce, you know what I mean? You've seen it earlier, and it's set up. Sorry.
It was a nice catch.
It pours the hot sauce on the tissue that the housekeeper had thrown into the trash, and shows Mrs. Kim, and like, look, she's coughing up blood. She has tuberculosis. And
it's cool how they intercutted the beginning of that sequence with like him rehearsing the scene.
That was cool.
Like he was just in his shitty basement subterranean home, rehearsing the scene as it was like playing out as well.
Yes.
That was
cool. With Kiwoo giving him advice, no, you need to be more emotion or less emotion, and and so like Mrs. Kim decides to fire the housekeeper quietly without like telling her the reason.
So instead of like someone losing a job, another escalation again. Sorry. So, and then, because I felt bad for the housekeeper since she had been there so long, and they used her allergy against her.
And they potentially could harm her, because it's not a good idea just to trigger someone's allergy.
Exactly.
You can like.
So now you didn't just get someone fired; you are now getting someone sick.
And she's an older woman, so she might have a harder time finding a job than the younger driver.
And so it works, right?
It works. And then they bring
him that he has TB because he took the selfie photo, right?
In the hospital.
right? They did the ketchup or no, the hot,
hot
sauce
sauce, sorry.
packet. So it works. And once again, keeping the same visual motif as the housekeeper has to leave, she is walking downhill.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I had a note of kalbijim is my favorite Korean dish. Because they made someone requested or made kalbijim, and I got super hungry during that scene.
Ooh.
It's like this Korean beef stew thing. Oh, we gotta have it one day.
Can you
And
make it?
I can. I'd rather
We can go out to eat.
Now I'm hungry.
Okay, so, and I thought it was once again he's setting stuff up, right? So do you remember the conversation that I believe he's having with his wife, where he's like, she was. Well, like, I don't understand, like, why she had to be let go of, right? She was nearly perfect. Well, she ate enough for 2. That was, like, the only fault.
Right.
And so you will know why it seemed like she ate for later.
I didn't make that connection.
Oh.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, see, he's fucking brilliant. Yeah, this guy's amazing. You know, everything is, set up properly. So the housekeeper is kicked out immediately because of the TV scare. And then Mr. Kim
Yes.
recommends, like, there's this service that I've heard. It's a special membership for VIP people. So you can give them a call and they can recommend you a new housekeeper.
Yeah.
And so that opens the door for the mom of the Kim family, right? So I just thought it was worth pointing out, like, did you guys feel at all that this family was, like, incompetent? That, like, he feels like if they don't hire a housekeeper soon, the whole house is going to fall apart because no one can cook or do laundry, like just basic things. You know what I mean? So here's this great Park family that can't even get through a week without doing laundry.
Yeah, they have to hire out for all of that.
That's what happens when you can afford being pampered, right? You kind of forget the basics.
Yes.
And then I thought it was peculiar that Mr. Park also puts down his wife, by basically saying she can't do this, like she can't cook, it's the expectation that the wife is supposed to do it. So it kind of shows, I mean, I don't know how things are today, but it always felt like Koreans were a little behind the times when it came to things like that.
And I just want to use this opportunity to mention something. So if so far we paid attention, like a domino sequence, each person refers the other person. Like the son refers the daughter refers the father, and the father now brings the mom. So it's just like creating a chain. But
and they kind of hide that chain too.
Yeah, obviously.
Because when Mr. Kim recommends the VIP service where you can get housekeepers, he recommends it to Mr. Park, and he was like, "Don't tell your wife that I told you this."
Yeah, so it's just a whole shit show of lies,
Clever lies.
And I just want to mention something, that these people probably they have some kind of capabilities to get those jobs on their own. Like Mr. Kim definitely knows how to drive. Mrs. Kim knows how to cook, and probably even Kiwoo was good with English. So they were not. It's not like that they didn't have any skills. They have the skills, but at the beginning they didn't have the right connections. So it has a nice reference to whole this whole the importance of connection and having network in modern society, especially probably in South Korea, that unless you have a connection you cannot find your position well in the highly divided society in terms of being unequal when it comes to the financial financial status and social status. So
it's just the way stakeholding
yes
is,
so you just need the connection.
I mean, my interpretation, what I wrote down is that thing stood up to me is that stood out to me as well, but for different reasons. It's that they were doing so well, and it's just sometimes when you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to ask for a glass of milk, right? They couldn't stop it. The son has a great job, the daughter has a great job. They just had to keep on going. They wanted to milk and take advantage of this Park family.
They were keep given hope, and they're like, oh, if we just go a little further.
Right. Right. So let's see. I did, though, back to Mr. Kim, find that put down to make him seem, and now everyone is a little gray, but this was the first sign that he was sort of an unlikable character, to me at least, a little cold. Now, once again, this is a big thing, but when the Park's 8-year-old son mentions that they all smell the same, was a great first introduction into this concept, which will play a larger role later on.
Yeah.
You guys have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was sad to some extent. So in the beginning, when you hear that from the little boy that they all smell the same, it's not a bad thing, because you think that, oh, probably they smell the same because they do their laundry in the same way, they use the same soap, so that's why that's the first thought they had. The Kims just have this like idea now. Okay, from now on we will like do our laundry separately. One thing that they didn't realize is that the smell that maybe the little boy is talking about is just like the smell of the place that they are living in.
Yeah,
it's just like the smell of like just being poor. So it was kind of like it has like layered meaning into it, but later on we will discover. So at the beginning it was just like a safe safe impression for me that probably the little boy has like a better like sense of smell, so he could like identify the smell of like
for
same
me it's just brilliant.
soap.
I mean, like what he was doing, because it's part of how he keeps the pacing. So I mean, to me, I don't know how long the movie was, but it felt beautifully paced and brisk.
Yes.
and
Yes.
always
It was.
moving forward. So it's son needs a job, gets it, recommends, daughter needs a job, gets it, conflict resolved, next father, next wife, right? And then almost immediately after, they all smell the same. You know, he keeps, and that's what you need constant beat changes to keep the story moving forward. And you know, once again, it's another interesting idea that makes complete sense. They all, you know, smell
And I
the
feel like the son kind of, since he was the first one to notice, he kind of planted it in the heads of the rest of the family. So they all started thinking about it more and more.
I didn't have
or they
that
could
like
have just been stanky.
Or that.
So let's see. So did you guys feel anything towards this scene where they're back at their subterranean basement and they see the guy peeing again? And instead of just like, so in the beginning of the movie, you know, to show how, you know, bad things are in the area that they live in, there's a drunk guy that pees in front of their window.
Who apparently does this a lot.
And so now they work for the Parks and they're sitting down, they see the guy peeing, and so what happens? What do they do about it?
So Kiwoo gets the courage to go up there and be like, hey, stop doing this, and try to get
Well, the first thing he did was he grabbed his rock.
Oh, right, he grabbed the rock.
Right, and then the father was like, oh, no, just spray water on them. So he handed him some bottles of water. But it's just, you know, this was one of the first visual signifiers for me, at least, that they are taking away from this likable family and creating a little bit more gray. Right.
And it also shows their changing mentality, and that they feel, now that they're making more money, they feel more empowered.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So you guys, so what happens after this? I think now all four of them are working, and the Park family decides to go on a camping trip for their son's birthday.
Yeah.
Right. And they do it every year because it, you know, like gets his mind off of the apparent first grade incident.
Traumatic.
Yeah, I think somewhere along the lines it was explained. Mrs. Kim said that first grade incident, his son saw a ghost.
Yeah.
And so that was traumatic for him. He stopped talking for a while or something like that. And then so to get his mind off of it every year since, they do something. And he likes to go camping because he's into Native American Indians and living in teepees.
Yes.
So they go, and now they have the house all to themselves. So what do you think this family would do? Be responsible and, stay at home and clean up while their wife does her duties, or
throw a party. Have fun.
Right. They got drunk as shit, right?
And enjoy all of the amenities of the house.
But once again, so brilliant. Like, oh man, I'm sounding like a fangirl. I know. But the reveal from after they went to the camping trip, where you see her, Mrs. Park being lazy on the sofa, lying down, and then she gets up and it's revealed that Mr. Park is right behind her, sleeping. It's just beautiful.
Yeah.
Like, everything is...
There was so much beauty in that film.
Definitely. So they're getting drunk. Anything cool happen there?
They just get a little bit crazy. They use all the let's say
So they drank, they ate all the food.
They even used like the bathtub. They enjoyed like all the beauty product that Mrs. Parks using, and
they're making a mess.
Yes.
And just from a film like point of view, so we've spent the least amount of time with Mrs. Kim now, the mother of the poor Kim family.
Yeah.
And so like in developing character, you want to create like unique traits for them, and so I thought it was cool that they put in a little time to show her shot putting in the backyard, right? Because that was like her thing.
Yeah.
Who does shot putting? I didn't know any shot putters.
They showed her medal in the intro to the movie.
Right. So that was cool that they showed a little bit of that. So here's a question I have that was brought up in there. So give me your opinions on this. They were basically saying, I forget who was saying, it's so good that, even though they're rich, Mrs. Park is still so nice.
Mr. Kim said that.
Okay. And then someone else brought up the question of
Mrs. Kim.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
if I have the same amount of money, I would be nice too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Do you have any feelings about that? Do you guys want to talk about that at all?
It just like shows that they wanna like, to me, it was like that. Oh, they wanna like escape their responsibility, but just blaming their financial or social status as them blame for not being nice or not being moral because they don't have the money.
Do you guys find rich people generally more nice?
No, that's not the case.
Do you think you'd be nicer and more what's the word? More of a philanderer? I'm just kidding. Philanthropic with money?
That's the thing. It's not the case. Money doesn't make you this nice person. You might do like philanthropic stuff,
but having money does reduce the stress and frustrations that having money doesn't, so you might act in a more generous way.
Yeah, stress is real
yeah
killer.
But if you
different stresses, I'm sure they have, but
different
not being able to pay your bills is a huge stress, and once again, it's survival is a bitch, right? It changes your moral compass, so there's that too.
Yeah, but I'm again thinking that just having money doesn't mean that you are turning into a nice person.
Yeah.
Like a lot of philanthropy we see these days is just like for the sake of like public image and or like getting tax benefits. So it's just not like those people are nicer. There are still actually a lot of like, you can be philanthropic on one side and still like trying to save like expenses by not paying your employees a good wage.
Yeah. And I don't think Mr. Park was ever that portrayed as that nice or that generous.
I think that in this movie particularly they portrayed it as very nice people.
Yeah.
I
think they make the Kim family at least more, specifically Mr. Kim, a bit more gray for other reasons that we'll bring up later. now just reminded me of so my boss was writing this book, Inclusive Stakeholding. I think I told you guys, right? And he does bring up and uses it as an example. He calls it a race to the middle, right? And one of the examples, well, part of like what's wrong right now and what creates income inequality is, you know, the system is designed to create all, you know, a few super wealthy individuals, right? And the race to the middle is those individuals end up with all that money wanting to do some philanthropy, you know, so they give back and they, you know, open up these charities and things like that. But yeah, so it just seems like that is a kind of a normal cycle and progression, is when you get to a certain level, you do start to do some nice things for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
So I think in this movie in particular, the portrayal of Park's family is generally positive, but we still see them in some like scenes that they kind of look to the poorer families, or especially Kim's, from the higher standpoint. Like they always they think that they have a higher status, and we will see it in like in different shots. Like when in the shots that they were talking about the panties, it was the first reference that, oh, this is a cheap material for panties.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying for me at least, I don't gravitate at all. I think, you know, everyone's gray, but I think the Kims are portrayed in a more favorable light than the Parks. You know, I mean, there are only a couple of examples of where they showed some, you know, some identifiable good traits, which we can talk about later. But anyways, they're all gray. They're all shades of gray. So once again, right, he's always creating a new obstacle and a new conflict, and this time something interesting happens as they're drunk, daydreaming about, you know, the son marrying the daughter and integrating families and then taking over the house.
And then there was one point where Mr. Kim like expresses regret about like the driver. He was like, oh, you know, we like pushed him out, and the daughter Ki Jung like screams out and is like, don't worry about him, just worry about us, like we don't care about other people, but we're good now, so like don't feel guilty. Once again, just, you know, justifying sort of their actions, right? So it just shows like where their priorities are even more.
Definitely.
So that incident that you were talking, so all of a sudden, while they were like having party and they didn't expect anyone to appear, they hear the door buzz.
And who was it?
The old housekeeper.
Dun,
dun, dun.
Mrs. Moon, as you want to like refer to her.
Miss Moon.
Miss Moon like all of a sudden appeared, and she was asking for permission to get into the house because she claimed that she has left something really precious to her in the house and she needs to like get it back.
She begs to let her in so that she can get it back. So reluctantly, because everyone was like, this is not part of the plan. Reluctantly, because she kept on, you know, being persistent also, but reluctantly she lets her in. The rest of the family hides, and she lets her into the basement. And she's like, do you want to come with me? And she's like, no, just hurry up. And she waits a little bit, but enough time has passed where I guess she wants to check up on the housekeeper.
It's getting suspicious.
Right. And it's a funny scene, just seeing the image in my head. She's basically, she has her feet on the wall and her hands trying to push this big ass shelf.
She's completely horizontal.
Yes.
Yeah. So, do you want to describe what happens after that? Anybody?
Yeah. All of a sudden, this is like the new, like the whole new like section in the movie that we are now introduced to.
It's turning point.
To a hidden door behind the shelves in the basement, and there is a staircase going deeper even into the ground, and we follow the maid Miss Moon along with Miss Kim to the basement, or to the hidden basement, And what we will see there is kind of shocking, because we figure in this scenes we in this scene we will find out that actually all this time there was another guy who happened to be Miss Moon's husband, was living there all the time, was living in the basement all the time, and he was hiding away. He has like some reasons that he want to hide it.
Yeah, he was. They had.
His cake shop failed, and he owed money to loan sharks.
And they were searching for him.
Yeah, so
Which I feel like is a big in the Korean dramas I've watched. I feel like there's a lot of loan sharks coming out for the characters.
Oh,
yeah, but
which is a common thing in drama.
yeah. Korean. I stay away from Korean dramas, so I don't know. See, she's more Asian than me.
I like Korean dramas.
So what was explained was about this this, we'll call it a fallout shelter, is that the architect who designed the house and also lived in the house before, they create these sort of like shelters for various reasons, and apparently the architect just didn't want to disclose it, maybe possibly felt ashamed about like building one or whatever, so he kept that information hidden from the new owner. So the Park family has no idea that this place existed, right? And so they go down, and the husband, since she was fired, didn't have enough time to go and get her husband out of there. So he's just been down there starving for a long period of time. And she begs the new housekeeper, Mrs. Kim, how, like, can I pay you? She's so desperate, and she just wants something. She just wants her husband to survive. She's so desperate. She says, I'll pay you. She's a poor woman too. I'll pay you. Can you just feed him twice a week? And then says, no, just once a week. You know, I will pay you this much money every month, you know? And
funny scene.
And Mrs. Kim is like, are you crazy? I'm not gonna do this. And
You are a bad person. You are a liar.
I'm going to call the cops.
yeah, she's gonna call the cops.
We had to take a break for many reasons. Nothing to do with me.
Yeah, you bet.
And I believe so let's go from basically Miss Moon is begging Mrs. Kim, can you please just feed him once a week? I will give you this amount of money every month in order to do that. And her response is, you guys are sick people. I should call the cops on you guys.
Yeah.
And then...
And like Mrs. Moon is calling Mrs. Kim like sister, and like, come on, we're in this together.
Exactly.
Like, we're in the same
just being
situation.
super nice to her.
Yeah.
And then what happens? That's comedic.
And then the rest of the family who's been listening to what's happening on the stairwell, you know, they're all kind of like drunk, and they trip over each other and like fall off the stairs.
Do a little pratfall thing. And then
it's hilarious.
I think someone calls someone father or something like that. And the old housekeeper, Miss Moon, obviously recognizes you know them, you know, as the tutor, as the art
Kevin
therapist,
and Jessica.
Kevin,
the
Jessica,
driver.
and the driver.
Yeah, and Kiwoo calls his dad, like, Dad, get off my foot.
Yeah.
And she's like,
so
takes a video.
Yeah. So it's funny how smart to take that video, right?
Yeah,
and
smart.
get that proof and blackmail them. And then all of a sudden it's shifted and changed. And it just reminded me of, there's, people's attitudes changes when, based on who has like the upper hand and things like that. And even at that time, that family was looking down. Later on, you'll see even more evidence of that, but kind of looking down at, like living down there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it just reminded me that even within class structures, there's more structure and hierarchy. Like Ryan Gosling told his story where he lived in a trailer park when he was growing up, and the high status people were trailer parks with no wheels. And then the worst is when you have wheels and you can see them, but his family had covers for the wheels. So he was like middle class of the trailer park, so there's always some sort of like structure going on.
Yeah.
So what I love about these specific scenes is that we see the two poor families are like fighting against each other in the basement. And then in the few next scenes, when the Moon and his husband now has the control over the Kims, because now they have the video, they go upper ground, one level upper the ground, and they now like start threatening them. And now it's like the Kims that they are begging Moon and his husband not to spread the video and not to send the video to the Park's family. So it was like brilliantly like working on a metaphorical level. Like two poors are like fighting against each other and like going from like lower status to like upper ground, and then now
just trying to crawl their way to
and the power balance kept shifting.
Yes,
because they were the Mr. and Mrs. Moon were making the Kims knee on the floor with their hands raised.
Yes.
And
and then I thought it was really great too that, you know, they gave a little bit of time to the two characters, Miss Moon and her husband, by showing some flashbacks of, you know, them in the house enjoying like the music. You know, now they turn around and said, you guys, what do you guys do when they're out of town? You guys get drunk and eat a bunch of shit. Like, we at least enjoyed the art that was in this house, you know, and the music that was in this house. And they showed images to, you know, just build the characters a little up, make you feel kind of, you know, bad for them.
And thereby making the Moons like, look, we're higher status than you are.
Right, right. Another, you know, just, you know, trying to fight for that inch difference. But also, once again, beautiful how they tied in Mr. Moon Gyun-se into the ghost, right? That the little boys had seen.
So funny.
So what happens now? Like, probably the worst possible thing, right? Is the phone rings and they find out. First of all, I think they wrestled.
Yeah, they wrestled for Miss Moon's phone.
Yeah, they went upstairs
evidence.
And all four of the Kims had to like be on their knees with their hands up or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. They were kneeling with their hands up, and the Moons were like, keep those hands up, like, don't move.
Right. You know, otherwise I'm going to send this text with this video of you guys, you know, in this house doing what you're doing. And so one of them makes a charge for it, and I think manages to grab the phone.
Yeah, like almost all of them were all like wrestling and pushing each other. And then in the middle of all this struggle, the house phone rings.
Right. So they keep the Kims overpower the Moon family and cover their mouths as the housekeeper, Mrs. Kim, goes to answer the phone. And what's the worst thing that could happen?
And the Parks are coming home tonight.
Yeah, the whole camping trip was cut short because of the rain. And so the house is a mess, right? Because they were partying it up.
And the old housekeeper and her husband, who was living in a secret bunker, are there.
Right, so they have to get them into the basement. And the reason for the phone call was Mrs. Park wants her to make some ramen noodles and some steak and wants it in like 7 minutes.
Yeah, Mrs. Park told her, make this dish. We'll be home in 8 minutes, and then so we'll be able to eat it right when we walk in the door.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're 8 minutes away.
Right. So she's busy away chopping. They're trying to pull these, you know, like heavy weighted, you know, bodies down back into the subterranean below basement, which is below where, and once again, remember the whole level, like physical levels of things.
My heart was pounding.
And then they're shoving shit. They don't even have time to put things into garbage bags. They're just like shoveling shit underneath tables. And then you see a light turn on and the Parks are walking back up the stairs. And so I think the son, Ki-woo, had to return a diary he stole back into the room. So he hides underneath the bed. Where does Ki Jung hide?
She hides underneath the coffee table in the family or living room, whatever room that is.
Right. And while this is happening, or a little bit before then, Mrs. Moon tries to make a run for it. And so she tries to run up the shelter, fallout shelter, and with a swift like roundhouse sidekick, Mrs. Kim sends her tumbling down because she like kicks her.
Did she kick her or did she elbow her?
I think it was a kick.
Wasn't it an elbow?
It could have been an elbow.
It was
regardless.
So
she didn't even like look back. She just elbowed.
Yeah, she did some like
Taekwondo
move. and she gets so she falls tumbling down.
I thought
and,
she died right
and
then
hits
there.
her head.
Yeah.
So at the very least, she's severely screwed or injured, right?
Yeah.
And Mr. Kim is down there trying to like, I think tie or duct tape Gyun-se.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
was talking with the husband and like
Yeah, tying him to a pole.
Right, and that's where he tries to say, "Look at you, you're living in here," you know, and he's pointing out this is like a semi-basement. It's like basically, what's the difference? You know what I mean? Just let me live here. He's begging him, just let me live here, and he's putting, and Mr. Kim is putting, Mr. Moon, I guess, down. You know, so he's trying to,
Which is
flip
ironic.
that again. Yeah, exactly. Like what? Like loan sharks? Who gets into trouble with loan sharks? Right?
Yes.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, and you see like Mr. Moon's admiration for Mr. Park,
Yeah.
which comes off as odd.
Right.
But and yeah,
I think that's the first time in the movie that I thought, oh, so that's the concept of Parasite. Because in the beginning of the movie, I thought that, oh, it's the Kims that they are becoming the parasite of this rich family. But then I realized that, oh, it's actually the people who are living in the basement that they are kind of like the parasite. But
I
when
think there's many
I think
parasites.
yeah. But I'm just
I think
saying that
everyone is kind of a parasite.
yeah, exactly. But then it was like a turning point for me that when he says that, oh, I'm thanking so when Mr. Moon says that, oh, I'm thanking Mr. Park by like sending him this Morse code and thanking him because he's giving me the shelter, basically somehow food, because he's living. I thought that, oh,
Yeah,
that's a nice type of parasite that he's still acknowledging, like the
That's a
host.
parasite.
Yeah, that's a good type of parasite because, you know, he's like thankful of the service of the host without trying to destroy it.
Yeah, and typing out Morse code with the
Yeah.
lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is another setup. And and the housekeeper, remember housekeeper Moon, when she came over, she said, "Don't worry, sis. No one will know that I was here. Can you please let me in?" Like I cut the CCTV camera feed.
Yeah.
So once again, everything is always set up in this movie. So we will remember those two details. So Mr. Kim finally, ties him up after that whole like reveal of the Morse code thing. He gets up into the basement and tries to sneak out. They think everyone's like upstairs.
Yeah.
And as they're doing that, they run back downstairs because the son still wants to camp and wants to go outside and teepee. And Mr. and Mrs. Kim Park, decide to just sleep on the couch where...
And then we're at this point, Mr. Kim, Ki-jung, and Ki-woo are all underneath the coffee table in front of the couch.
That was one of the greatest scene of this whole movie.
Right, not just the coffee table. I think Mr. Kim specifically was under the couch, and one other person was under the couch that they're sleeping in. So you get a visual of another indication of who's on higher ground than the other. So he's super consistent with like that visual motif. But
Constantly with the up and down.
But this is a key and crucial scene, right? Because it reveals a couple things. One, it does kind of is endearing, the walkie-talkie back and forth between Mr. Kim and the son. So there's some like nice quality going on there.
Yeah.
And then there was this whole sex scene, sexual scene, right? Where she's like, we can't do this. And Mr. Kim is grabbing her boob. And then she's like, well, just do it counterclockwise or something like that.
Give some instructions.
Like, yeah, exactly. And then starts yelling out like, I want you to get me drugs or something like that. I know, just some passionate throw. She
Isn't that
she
when
wants drugs.
Mr. Park was like, oh, it'd be really hot if you put the underwear we found
yeah,
out.
Well, if you want me to do that, go buy me drugs, So it was just, it was showing that, it was quite revealing, especially like to, I imagine, Mr. Kim, who's underneath the sofa. And they mentioned something, again, touching upon, like Mr. Kim never crosses the line. That's a good thing, except for his smell. His smell crosses the line.
Yeah.
Yes.
So all of those things are important revelations.
Yeah, that was sad. Like, on this particular shot, I remember the exact same feeling I had like in the cinema. I was so like shivering because of all the excitement of like previous scenes that we have just watched.
Yeah.
And it was kind of also funny at the same time because of like this weird sex comment about the nipple thingy. And when they talk about the smell of Mr. Kim's, it was like really sad. It just like
Yeah, they
sad.
compared it
Quite
to
sad.
like they compared it to like a dirty rag. That was one example, and because they were trying to say, what does it smell like? And the wife's
Is it when
like,
they brought up this like smell from riding the subway?
right, because I think someone no. So it starts
That's one
off.
of
So
them.
it starts off here. It goes, they smell something, right, and it smells like Mr. Kim because Mr. Kim is actually there underneath the sofa. And he starts explaining that what does cross the line is his smell, and it smells like something he can't quite pinpoint. And Mrs. Park is like, what, like an old man? I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, no, like a dirty rag. And he might have said one more thing that's like not a favorable smell that anyone would want. And then mentions, no, it kind of smells like the subway smell. I never ride the subway. And it shows like the real feelings about like the different class, right? The
Yeah.
lower
Yes.
class. Okay, so let's see. So they do finally have a window of opportunity and finally escape out of the house, out of the
Yeah.
garage, walking downhill. And then what happens?
And then the rain.
So it's raining already, but as they get lower and lower and closer and closer and lower and lower,
Yeah, they keep
and closer
descending.
and closer to where they actually live, there's a huge flood, right?
And their house is almost entirely
But
flooded.
luckily, these are responsible family, and they closed the window, right?
No, they did not close the windows.
So that's why all their house was filled with water and all of our furniture were like floating on the surface of water.
Yeah, so they were just grabbing things that they could, and then there was the great scene where Ki-jung was sitting on top of the toilet with the lid closed, and there was just like shit spewing out.
Yeah, almost a literal, shit hitting the fan moment, just with it spewing out uncontrollably. What does Ki Woo decide to save?
The Scholar's
Stone.
Rock.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes, yeah, it's your turn.
And
But I just want to again adore the scene with the toilet. It was just so touching because we have just watched how a poor family got bad, basically bad remarks from a rich family that they think that they are smelly, and now we are following them to their
In
stairs
sewage water.
and
covered in
earlier-
shit.
earlier Ki-jung was taking this luxurious bath, and then she ends up sitting on on top
that's
of
nice.
the toilet lid
Yeah, that's
with
very
all the
good.
sewage coming out.
I didn't pay attention to that. That's a good thing that you saw that and now you saw this. It's just
definitely.
quite a something.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's hard to believe that all happened in one night.
Yeah, but it just, the escalation and,
Yeah.
no coincidence that, the most visually sort of crazy thing going on, happens after the whole introduction of the moon situation with the, fallout shelter.
Yeah.
So he's keeping things going forward. And then they basically have to, because of this flood, stay at some sort of gymnasium or something with hundreds, it looks like,
Yeah,
other people.
it was so crowded.
And tell me about the poignancy of the interaction between Ki-woo and Mr. Kim, father and son, while they're lying down.
Yeah, 'cause they're asking Ki-woo was Dad, what's the plan? What are we gonna do with all of this that happened tonight? And his dad just, because it's really heartbreaking, I think. Talk about he's oh, don't worry, I have a plan. But he's but the best plan is having no plan because plans always go awry.
I think earlier we've heard them while they were walking back to their house, walking down the hills to their house. The father said that, "Oh, I have a plan. Don't worry." But when they were in the gymnasium, he says that my plan is having no plan.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
the
because
best
basically what he's telling his son is don't dream. You know, he's like, don't make a plan because plans never work out. He's basically telling his own flesh and blood son, who still has his whole future ahead of him, you know, don't dream. You know, you're just going to be disappointed. And that, like, that was super sad.
Yeah, that just really underlines the pessimistic feeling of this movie.
Yeah, and when you're living in poverty, it's kind of easy to have a defeatist sort of mentality. So that's, you know, not at all surprising.
I feel like that really added to his character a lot. Mr. Kim's.
Definitely. I mean, you can kind of see in his face, and great acting too. Like, they deserve some nods here.
So good.
But Mr. Kim's face, you know, you could see like defeat in his eyes. So we now fast forward. All of them are called in because they decide to have an impromptu family party, like a lawn party. I guess something like that. I ain't rich, so I don't have no lawn parties. But Mrs. Park is calling like Ki Jung invites her over, right? Friends, close family for kind of her son's thing. Like
spontaneous birthday party for him.
Right. And so the housekeeper's there, and she like demands that she brings out or commands that she brings out like these picnic tables, and then Mr. Kim's out there and like is complaining that like she's doing it too loudly, you know, like
and they were very specific about the setup. Like, I want a crane's wing formation.
Crane's formation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't think Mrs. Kim never left the house, right? She didn't go back home.
No, she's a housekeeper, supposed to be live in.
Yeah, she didn't have to, so she stayed.
Did she know that their house got flooded?
At this point, no, I don't think so. I mean, we're into. No,
it doesn't matter for the
story. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and we're already into, you know, the final location. Essentially.
Yeah.
So I did find, you know, a little, drawn to the fact that Mr. Park does love his son so much that he's joyfully wanting to get involved by dressing up like an Indian and surprising him and coaxing Mr. Kim. Mr. Park is getting Mr. Kim to dress up as a Native American Indian too and do this little thing, right? So they have an interaction, right? Do you just want to talk about that interaction?
Yeah, because it seems like that because they were planning to have Ki Jung bring out the cake, and Mr. Kim and Mr. Park were gonna attack her, and so the son, Mr. Park's son, could like save the day and be a hero. And they were hiding behind Mr. Kim and Mr. Park were hiding behind the bush, like dressed up, and it seems like, you know, this would be something you would do with friends. It seemed it would be like a bonding activity, like, oh look, we're doing this fun thing together for my son. But like Mr. Park clearly like draws a line with Mr. Kim.
Yeah, because of the smell.
And, the smell, and he reminds him, this is your job.
Well, I mean, because Mr. Kim was asking him questions like, so you love your wife a lot, or you love your kids, you know. He was just asking him questions, and I think Mr. Park, got the vibe of,
he's meddling so much, or he's asking too many questions.
No, just like, hey, I don't know if you're into this or not. I don't know where these questions are coming from, but let me remind you, you're getting paid. Consider this work. So just do as I say. I don't know why you're bringing up all this shit, you know?
Oh,
and
okay,
to me, it was, I mean, that's how I read it. And to me,
Yeah.
it was a turning point for me. And you can just see it once again in the face of both actors, really.
You could, I think Mr. Park, he's very unlikable in that moment.
Yeah, definitely, which comes in handy because something's about to happen to him. And remember, essentially the Kims, even though they're the deceptive, poor has nothing to do with it, but family, they are kind of presented, that's their story, right? And in their heads, they're the heroes, fighting the good fight or whatever.
Yeah.
So it is important because some other shit goes down, at least from a directorial standpoint, to add that scene there where it's another reaffirmation that yes, everyone's gray, but in this moment he's more dark than good.
Yeah.
So let's see. While this is happening, the
Kiwoo.
What is he doing? What's he up to?
So I don't remember exactly, but he carries the stone.
He's with the daughter up in her room, like they're making out or something, and he decides he needs to take action.
Because they're
by
all
himself.
Invited, right?
Yeah,
the
they're
driver was in. Well, he was driving.
The entire Kim family is
and
there.
then the tutor and the art therapist, brother and sister, they were invited. So Parks and Kim's together, one house.
Yeah, and Ki-woo decides he needs to take action with the moons. And I think it was funny because earlier there was a little like dialogue with the mother and Ki-jung, and they were like, oh, what are we gonna do about like the moons? They're trapped in the basement. And the mom was like, oh, you know, like we all just got too dramatic last night, like we'll just talk to them, it'll be fine. And I think it was funny that they thought they would be able to brush it off so easily.
Yes.
But so Ki-woo goes down to the basement, and Mr. Moon had somehow untied himself and attacks Ki-woo and escapes.
Well, so what happens is
before that we saw, actually, let me just this might be something, this might not be something.
Upstairs?
So, no, I want to like say downstairs we saw Mrs. Moon tell Mr. Moon that she thinks that her eyes cannot see anymore because she has a concussion. So all the while we are seeing like Mrs. Kim try to comfort like Jessica or like Ki-jung that it's all going to be going away because she thinks it's not a serious situation. We will see actually their violence have done some serious damage because Mrs. Moon is suffering from a concussion,
which she dies from.
Yeah. Eventually.
Eventually. Yeah, so we fast forward to the day of the party, right?
Yes.
And then so Ki-woo has a moment with the Park's daughter, who he is tutoring. They're like we're making out. Then they stare out the window at all these like fancy people, right? All these bougie people. He's like, "Do I fit? Like would I fit?" Like, and he questions it. He knows it's different, right? And he says he needs to do something about it. So for some reason, he takes the Scholar Rock out of his bag, I think, and then he walks down into the basement and then opens up the entrance to the fallout shelter. He slips, he falls, the Scholar Rock comes tumbling down. Then Gyung-se, Mr. Moon, basically grabs the Scholar Rock or chases him, perhaps with the Scholar Rock that he left on the ground, and tries to attack him with it. Yeah. He does have a piece of wire wrapped around his neck that falls maybe about 4 feet behind him. So as he's running away, he gets yanked by that rope. And then what does Mr. Moon do with the Scholar Rock?
Mr. Moon takes the Scholar Rock and smashes his head. I thought he was dead right there.
And for good measure, because it's funny, he picks it up again.
And does it a second time.
So at this point, Mr. Moon,
he's on the rampage now.
Well, apparently he loves his wife so much that set him off, right? Now he has a vendetta against all of the Kims. So he goes into the backyard, and someone want to describe what happens?
You go.
So he takes a kitchen knife and runs into the backyard wielding this knife and stabs Ki-jung. I think it stabs her in the chest. She's bleeding. Everyone is screaming. The son passes out. The Park's family son, and he tries. And I forgot the exact sequence of things.
So I think the sequence was like that. First, the little boy saw the ghost coming into the scene.
Mr. Moon was the ghost.
He saw while he was at first grade. So he saw the ghost. And the funny thing is that on a side note, that this party is supposed to be also a party for the little son, because now he's considered fully recovered from the past traumas because of the good job that Jessica has done with the art therapy session. But the scene that the little boy saw the ghost coming out again, it just cleared everything.
Yeah, and he basically passed out or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Suffered some sort of
So Jessica or Ki-jung was carrying the cake, and Mr. Moon like stabbed her. Like I think it was on the shoulder or somewhere close to the heart and artery.
Yeah.
So while like Mr. Kim saw that scene, he just like went there to save her daughter, and he was like while he was pushing her Jessica's wound,
And Mrs. Kim was tussling with Mr. Moon.
And all of a sudden, while like Mr. Moon and Mr. Park, they were like wrestling, Mr. Kim realized something. Mr. Kim realized...
Wait, what?
Mr. Kim realized that Mr. Park is kind of has this disgusted feeling or disgusted look on his face because of Mr. Moon's smell.
Wait. So what happened? So basically he's yelling, Mr. Park is yelling to the driver, Mr. Kim, you know, as he's tending to, he doesn't know it, but his daughter, right?
Yeah.
He's yelling, hurry up, we gotta take my kid who just passed out into the hospital, right?
Yeah, and he cares nothing about Ki-jung.
He cares nothing about who's bleeding to death, this person and this person who's a murderer. And he's meanwhile struggling with how the new housekeeper, Mrs. Kim, right? And she takes finally a fucking skewer full of sausages still on the skewer and stabs him on the side. Mr. Kim is basically just fed up, like, just throw me the car keys then, right? And in a panic, he like throws the car, he agrees, throws the car keys, and somehow it ends up below
underneath
Mr. Moon, who's stabbed to death at this point, right?
Yeah.
So Mr. Park, in order to get the keys, has to move the now deceased or stabbed to death Mr. Moon, and as he's doing that, there's a revelation, right? Which is
that look on like Mr. Park's face, that he's disgusted by the smell, that same smell that it's kind of like a metaphorical thing that this is the smell of like being poor. This is the smell of being inferior to your social class. This is the smell of like being neglected by the richer part of the society. So it has so many things in it, but that was a reminder for Mr. Kim that...
And how does he take it? Like, so how does he interpret it? And you're in his mind right now. You see Mr. Park gives the same smell thing to this guy. So how do you interpret that?
So I think at that moment he thinks that, oh, Mr. Park doesn't care, first of all, about like my daughter lying down on the floor, bleeding to death. And he sees all of us as like dirty, smelly, worthless creature. So why should I have cared about him? I should like take him out. I cannot take this like unjust, unfair social caste that like dictating to me that I am inferior to them. They are not good people. I can hold this knife and like stab Mr. Park, and I will like eliminate and wipe out the source of all the inequalities and all the unfairness, which happens to be the rich people. I think that's the moment that the whole being unequal in terms of like income and being belong to different social classes like comes in full circle. That finally the poor kind of rebelled against the rich. But this is my reading, so I would like happy to hear your reading of that scene.
Yeah, that it just the situation became too much for him, and he was like, well, my daughter's dying on the ground, bleeding to death, and this guy's trying to escape and doesn't care about her. And he was like, well, what else can I do? And yeah,
I just read it like, exactly with the smell. He identified, oh, you know what, we're all the same to them, right? And then that's why I hate these groups and them and versus us. So now it's not a matter of the right side. He's choosing, oh, we're all poor, so I'm on the poor side, fuck you, and goes crazy and takes the knife and stabs Mr. Kim, right? And
Mr.
Park and kills him. Mr. Kim takes the knife and stabs Mr. Park, and then Mrs. Park faints, right?
Yeah.
And then he runs away.
Yeah, he runs away. And
flash forward we will see.
By the way, can we just give him props all the time? I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's smart. You have to do it, but it was just set up the smell,
smell,
you know,
yes.
as part of the climax.
The smell was the trigger.
Yeah, it was just set up so nicely because it was
It
humorous
was.
at first. It was like, do we all gotta like get different soaps now?
And
you
wash
know?
on different days.
Right.
Yes.
But then it just, you know, it
Yeah.
kept on coming up, and then it was beautiful. That was and it was believable.
Yes.
You know,
It
the way he
was.
did it.
Yes.
And
you
it
know?
was just...
It wasn't like
it
in
was
Batman v
ever-present.
Superman when like they're both moms named Martha, you know? It was set up nicely and was believable. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, the talk of the smell just kept occurring. So it was like in your mind. And this repetitive theme just became too much.
Yes.
I also thought it was kind of peculiar that it went full circle kind of with the Scholar Rock. The way I read it was a gift at first, and then now for Kiwoo, it's something that'll leave him cursed.
Yeah.
Because we do, the next scene is we see
Kiwoo in a hospital bed he had brain surgery because his head was smashed in.
the detectives were trying to interview him and he kept...
They were
Laughing.
trying to read him his Miranda rights, and all he could do was laugh. And it's him narrating, talking about like,
From there on,
I could only laugh
even when they went to visit, because it's revealed that
Ki-jung dies.
That Ki-jung died. So even the first time he got to see any image of Ki-jung was at her, I don't know what they call it, I guess over there, but her ashes in this like wall, and
With her picture.
right. And even though he felt, you know, a certain type of way, all he could do was laugh, right?
Yeah.
What happens after that?
So afterwards, Kiwoo and his mom are like put on trial, but they escape. They only get like probation or something.
Yes.
They get very light sentence. Because the authorities are baffled by the crime. They don't know like
Where he went, which, you know, and then they have a reveal shot, right? Where I think it was like a focus pull out into showing the CCTV feed being cut, which was set up by the housekeeper. So everything has an explanation. Everything's airtight. Okay, so at this point, do we see what happens to Mr. Kim? Do they show that flashback?
No, I think they follow Kiwoo a bit, and Kiwoo is like on this hill watching the Park's old house, and his new family has moved in.
Oh yeah, a new family moved in. He's got a great vantage point, right?
Yeah, like a German family or something.
Yeah, they were German.
And he sees the light flickering, and he realizes that it's Morse code. And he like notes it down, and then realizes it's a message from his father saying that Mr. Kim escaped into the basement, into the bunker area, and has been down there since.
You guys keep referring to the bunker area. You keep referring to the bunker. He says that shelter.
Fallout shelter.
Fallout
yeah,
shelter.
Bunker, same thing.
Yes.
But yeah, and I thought that was interesting too, right? Because
Yes.
this was the first time that I can recall seeing Mr. Kim actually move up steps. When they showed the escape, like he went out and he ran out, but he had to walk back up some steps.
Yeah, he walked back in through the garage.
Right, but the first time I see him walk up some steps, it's to the destination is to a place lower than he's been before.
Yeah.
In a place that he ridiculed Gyeong-se for living in. And he said, who gets into trouble with loan sharks? Now he's in there because he has to hide from murder.
Yes.
You know, so
Yeah, which is like a higher degree, definitely crime than like getting some money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hiding from the law.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. So
And then-
tell us about, so he's narrating, right? You know,
And then you see,
the letter.
yeah, he's narrating the letter from his father, about how his father has been living there and like sneaking food for himself every so often, and how he like cries when he thinks of his daughter. And it was a very touching letter, I thought. And you see Kiwoo, that you see him like daydreaming about how he like makes this promise to himself that he's going to one day make enough money that he can buy that house, and his dad can just walk up into the sunlight and they can hug, and you see this beautiful imagining scene where that happens. And then you return back to where Kiwoo is sitting in their basement home and
Writing down a letter.
yeah, and then they show the window of the semi basement, and they like pan down to where like Kiwoo is sitting there dreaming of this future. It's very, I don't know, how did you guys feel about that ending?
It was haunting for sure for me.
Yeah, it was sad, because he's dreaming of this future. But to me, I just kept on thinking of, just the reset of the cycle.
It came full circle.
Yes.
So here's in a way a form of like, it's a rat race, right? Dream and whatever. Okay, here's what I wrote. I said it was heartening that through all this, Kiwoo decides to still make a plan and dream about the future. It's how much he loves his family, or sometimes it takes us something this big to knock us off our asses. Or in reality, though, and in all likelihood, it's just a pipe dream, and this just resets the whole hopeless, just trying to survive cycle. Because when you think about it, how is he going to afford to get to college?
Yeah, he's never going to get that.
Yeah. Opportunity.
And I was reading the ending credits song. Was originally titled, it's called A Glass of Soju, but it was originally titled 564 Years.
Does anyone know what soju is?
Is it like
it's Korean beer?
Yeah.
No, it's not beer. It's
not beer?
Korean wine taken in shot, kind of like sake.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I should know that. I've drank a lot of it before.
Yeah. That was like the only like Korean phrase I knew, which was "여기요," which is come here to the Korean waiters, and then "참이 소주 두 개 주세요," which is bring me 2 bottles of soju. Yeah. So that was it. Yeah.
Soju is strong.
It's not even. It's 10%. But what it is it's a creeper, because you take 10 and you're like, I feel fine, and then 5 minutes later you're like, oh, I love you, man. So okay.
Yeah.
So what was?
Score.
Yeah, the song was originally called 564 Years, which is the number of years Kiwoo would have to spend to earn the money to buy that house.
Ew.
Which I thought was really grim.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and if you especially tied it back to that scene in the gymnasium when Mr. Kim told him that, never made a plan, never dream, because those aren't going to be a reality in future. And he was exactly doing that. And we also know that because of the brain surgery, he now has this like sense of like optimism, false sense of optimism by being happy, or like, so that might also do something with that he's so sure about that he can actually make that plan into a reality. Actually, I was like reading the interview with the actor of Kiwoo, and he was like, I'm sure Kiwoo is a smart guy.
Does he think he'll achieve that dream?
Yeah, and I think that it's up to the viewer, like that, how they want to see it. Like, I have like friends, I told you that we watched it in like in group. We went to the cinema with a group of friends. So like some of them, it was funny. They thought that, all of that was imagination of Kiwoo because he has now this brain surgery. Like some of them like has us, of course. Let's be also optimistic about the whole situation. He can buy the house so the family can be together. And I was like, no, that's not going to happen.
So I guess it's whether you believe that you can move upwards economically or not in society.
Yeah.
I just think odds are very low.
Yeah,
very slim, especially
I
with
don't
the way
think
things
he's
are
going
structured
to
right now.
Yeah, I think that's what also the director wanted us like to feel like.
But I don't know South Korea, so I don't know. I just know it's.
I feel like with the way it was shot, it was saying that no, I don't think that he won't achieve that dream.
Yeah. Also, all the scenes were like kind of foggy and like has like this dreamy.
Yeah, they were hazy.
I thought it was like, do you think he can do it for real? I was like, he's a real guy.
So I have a question.
I think if it ended at that scene where you'd see Mr. Kim walk up and hug his son, and he's finally free. If it ended there, it would be more optimistic, but they went back down into the basement.
Yes, to show you the real reality.
Yeah.
And I think that there should be no question that it's just like a dream for them, and for the rest of his life, probably Mr. Kim would be the parasite of now this German family by living in their like fall off shelter or the bunker space and eating or sneaking into their like kitchen during the midnight and like stealing food. So unfortunately, that's his life.
Yeah.
Now.
Parasite 2. Revenge of Kiwoo. Yeah, no. So why don't we give a little recap? You guys want to tell me your last thoughts on the movie and give me like a little score?
Okay.
Would that
So
be possible?
So one thing that I've written down is that most of the things that we see in this movie, especially from the Kim family, is in fact is kind of self-destructive because they happen in even a worse situation compared to their initial situation.
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
you know, like remember, like first of all, like I agree with you 100%. Is they seem like very capable people that, given different circumstances, could have excelled, could have been just like the Park family, right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
there were certain elements that prevented them from doing that. Some in their control, you know, like you saw them trying to speed through folding boxes to take shortcuts, but they ended up getting docked 10%.
Yeah.
Some of the things out of their control, right? But yeah, besides that, like I just hit a pothole. Like what the hell? What did you just say?
That they were capable people.
But they didn't have the network to get
Yeah.
the job.
Why
Yeah.
did you bring it up in the first? Why did I interrupt you? Why did I interrupt you?
That's a great question.
Because I was just like referring to this whole self-destructive behavior that they show.
Oh,
in
yes,
the
yes, yes.
movie,
So even though
because
they-
they ended up in even a worse situation
Right.
than their initial situation.
And even little things too, right? Because they're the ones that left the window open.
Yes.
That's why their
Yeah.
place flooded. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So it's, you know, it's their doing. It just kept on going, you know, bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like those great movies like Fargo or Simple Plan. You know, things just keep on.
Things just keep piling up.
Yeah, I love those type
And
of movies.
little things like keeping the window open really comes to their doom.
Yeah. What else you got there? Yes.
Okay, so the other thing that I want to mention is that usually in the movies about rich and poor, you will see that the villain are the rich people. But in this movie, we see the poor that becomes the villain and the victims at the same time. And
Yeah.
the poor,
Yeah.
the rich family is more on a victim side.
Yeah.
So that was an interesting thing for me because being poor is not praised. Like it doesn't render, this movie doesn't render poor families as like good, innocent people.
Or you know the stereotype of like, oh, everyone is happier when life is simple and when you don't have money, and it brings all this.
Yes. So this movie like fights against cliche a lot, and I like that a lot. So the other thing that I took note here is that the role of architecture. I mean, how well the set design is done for this film, and I didn't know that Joon-ho like just designed the whole space from the ground up. But I thought the architecture and the role of architecture in this movie is like very like
It's messed
important.
up, right? Because that house looked gorgeous to me. I don't
Right?
know about you guys, but
It looked like a magazine cover.
Yes.
bastard, just do one thing good. Bong. Bong.
It does everything.
Sorry, Bong. All right, so what else? What else
Yeah,
you got?
so I have the architecture here written down because obviously I'm an architect. So
Yeah.
and I thought, it was cool that they mentioned that the previous owner was also the architect. I mean, also designed the whole thingy.
A famous one too, right?
Yes.
Namgyung or something like that.
Yeah, so that was like a nice reference. And usually in a lot of like horror movies, you will see the use of modern architecture, but they don't use it in a metaphorical or symbolic way. But in this movie, because of the whole concept of like going down and going up, I mean, climbing up, the use of a staircase is just so brilliant. It just super brilliant, and we talk about it throughout the whole podcast. So I just want to like mention that one more time. Okay, you please
Yeah, he was
continue
like
with the
super
Okay.
consistent too, right? Because it wasn't just going above and below ground, you know, to position and choreograph everything so that Mr. Kim ends up below Mr. and Mrs. Park underneath the sofa.
Yeah.
You know, he's just like super consistent with like keeping that theme on. Amongst the other things, like demanding she cook the ramen and have it ready by the time they get there. And this is
Yeah.
part of your job, you know, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what about you? Do you want to recap any final thoughts on the movie, and do you want to
Yeah.
give it a score of any kind?
Oh, right. Okay. So, the like social commentary things really stood out to me, especially like the small things and way people acted. Like after the flooding scene and before the birthday party, when Mr. Kim was driving Mrs. Park around to prepare for the party, she made a comment about like, oh, so glad the rain stopped, but now the sky is so blue, so the rain was great or whatever. And she completely had no idea of what was happening in the poor neighborhoods, that people's homes were destroyed because of this rain.
Oh yeah.
So
I
she was
totally
just,
forgot about that,
yeah,
but
she
that
was
was
just
also like a
oblivious.
hunting moment. I mean, a good reminder for us that a lot of times it's not like that rich people just want to like look down to the poor. It's just like that they have absolutely zero ideas, zero idea
that they're
about
so
like their
cut off
situation.
from each other.
Yeah, like, and we see this like occurring pattern over and over again in our politics, in our everyday life, that people who has no idea of like certain people, a certain demographic in population, and they try to make like laws or like things to make their life.
What?
I'm just trying
You
to
saying
like,
Bloomberg doesn't know what it's
yeah,
like?
and yeah, exactly. In the damn debate,
But
we
he'll
see like
do
bunch
it.
of
He'll
white
get it
people talks
done.
about like racial, like I mean, how it's hard for like African American to achieve different things, while we have literally zero African American on the debate stage. So I just thought that yeah, we will see this like all over again. I mean all the time, that these people have zero idea about the other side of the society.
Yeah, I mean, that's how society is structured, and that's how structural inequalities are produced, being so cut off, and people aren't in these cooperative relationships. People come into these parasitic relationships, just like how
Someone wins, someone else loses.
yeah.
And you mentioned that like earlier that you feel like that everyone has been a parasite in this
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. Talk
You
about
wanna,
who
like,
is
talk
the
about-
parasite.
Oh yeah.
Because I feel like the obvious answer would be like the Kims are the parasite in the beginning, and then they're leeching off the rich family and pushing out all these other not rich people. And then you see the Moons, and they're also a parasite of the Parks. But I also think the Parks are a parasite of society. Like they have their like they're just, but they hire out for all of their home labor, and I don't know. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, they certainly take advantage of their, employees in certain respects.
They do, and I feel like Hope is kind
They're
of,
taking from them,
Yeah,
to do
they're-
all these menial,
and the way they treat them too
hmm
contributes to that parasite feeling. Yeah.
I think that in the beginning of the movie, I didn't have necessarily the feeling that the Kims are the parasite, because I was seeing their relationship with Parks more of like a symbiotic relationship, because they were getting some benefits and they were giving. So basically it was like the whole giving and receiving concept between them. So it was more of like a symbiotic relationship, but where things become darker, I thought that it's more like it's closer to the definition of parasite on both ends. And as you said, like everyone is a parasite.
And I feel like there's kind of an emotional parasite in the feeling of hope, because the Kims are hopeful, and then they keep like pursuing this hope forward, and then ultimately like brings their ruin. And I think it also connects to what Mr. Kim was saying about not having a plan, so not having hope, so then nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, outside of the all of that and all the meaning, just as a film, I thought the piano score that you mentioned earlier was like super awesome.
Oh, that was amazing.
The acting we touched upon lightly. I love everyone did a brilliant job, to me at least, and especially Mrs. Park for obvious reasons. Cinematography is beautiful. Motion is brilliant. Story to me is without flaw. Pace and editing were perfect. I scored a 13 out of 13.
But we're scoring out of 13.
I don't know. You make it up. I was either a 13 out of 13 or a 19 out of 19. I can decide.
I just give it A+.
Yeah,
Good.
I'll do A+. A++.
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 Nice.
Wow.
So we all love the movie.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention, I don't know why it just popped in. When I was going through the list of Korean movies, how could you not mention Old Boy? Like that was like the game changer. That was the game changer for Korean cinema to me. I forgot who did it. And not the remake with Spike Lee. Old Boy, Korean movie. Watch it. All right. Unless you guys got anything else to add, I think.
Do we have any like things we didn't like about the movie?
Not me.
I don't either. I did read a critic on the New Yorker who didn't like the movie because he said it's neither. He thought it was too like middle ground. He said it's neither nihilistic or utopian, neither revolutionary or visionary.
Fuck you.
It just wishes and it shrugs and it's so wishy-washy. And I don't think he explained his
you just want to be
perspective quite
different.
well.
I think he saw the 100% Rotten Tomatoes rating.
Right.
It was like, I need to get some traffic. Let me give one of the few bad reviews. If you're asking me, the answer is I couldn't find any flaws worth writing down and discussing today. Yes, you?
No, not any specific flaw, but I mentioned to you also like 4 months ago or 5 months ago that I thought that this movie might be too crowded with like different concepts, because it's not a minimalist like take on like the poverty or social, like, I mean, let's say social discrimination. But now when I like think about it again, I see that, oh, it's just perfect. Everything is becoming like a full circle. So although while I was watching it, it was hard for me to making connections, but now after our discussion today, I'm now seeing that, oh, how well all these elements played out throughout the movie, and now we are like seeing full circles again and again with different sub stories in this like whole storyline. And I just give it again A+. So I will take my words back. I will take my 5 months old words back. And I think this is perfect.
It's a great multiple viewing movie, but I'm sure more is revealed. I'm sure if I watch it a third time, I'll pick up some more.
I think they
things
released a black and white version too. Which,
if we have color, let's just use it, guys. Unless you're Kevin Smith and don't have it in your budget. I think what was announced was, I think they're going to do a 6-hour Parasite on streaming show. Bong Joon-ho, I think, is going to be like a producer on that. So I guess he said he had too many ideas to put into this movie, so he's going to get the rest of his ideas out.
Oh wow.
there are more?
Is it like a remake, like American remake of that?
I don't know.
Because I've heard something about HBO trying to make an American version of it.
So it's going to be 6 hours essentially, and it will be
American
American made.
well.
But I think Bong Joon is attached to at least get some sort of like producing.
So it's a remake of the
oversight
movie?
role.
They want to like,
or a 6-hour version of the movie, because he said he had too much
Oh.
too. So
Yeah, also
So-
part of the reasoning is that they want to now make it in a way that it would be more believable for like, or more relatable to US audience, because it's going to be distributed by like HBO.
I think it was already pretty.
Yeah. But you know
believable.
what? They want to probably make it like an English speaking movie for like lazy people who
Right.
can't read subtitles.
Yeah.
Why do you need to
No
make an
comment.
English speaking movie?
I have no idea because I haven't done like careful reading
Why does
about like
everything-
what is next step for
Why does
that. But
everything
all
need
I
to be
know
done for
is that they wanna
Westerners.
they wanna like as Mike said, they wanna like create a longer version of that.
Okay.
Whether it's with like Korean actors or not, I have no idea.
I don't mind. I'll probably end up checking it out because I did
Yeah.
like this movie so much. So, I think we should wrap it up.
Yeah,
though.
we
should
We're-
wrap it
I don't know. We're like 2.5 hours or something like that. But I do
Oh my.
always love hanging out with you guys and just talking shit and like talking about films. Join in the discussion. I hope you guys got something out of it. Please do like and subscribe. Yeah, let us know. Did you like Parasite as much as we did? Did we miss some sort of like blatantly obvious insight? And we'll just talk to you later. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.